I have never hit free agency. I've never been, the belle of the ball or whatever. I've never even seen what offers are out there from another company. I signed my first contract with Impact Wrestling nearly 6 years ago. I re-signed 3 years ago. Now that one's coming up, and I think I would doing myself and my family a disservice by not seeing what's out there. And if there's something out there that gets me really excited, it's all about what makes me happy at the end of the day. I've everything in my wrestling career for these 19 years has been just following my heart.
So, like I said, I'm in my car. Not how I wanted to do this interview, but I get a chance to get some time with Josh Alexander, the walking weapon. Sir, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing very, very well. Walking weapon, where does that come from, in fact?
It actually came in about 2011, 2012. So it's 6 or 7 years in my wrestling career. And I was itching for a moniker, man. Like at the time, I was traveling up and down the roads with All Ego, going through America, trying to build a name for ourselves. We were both doing singles competition. We weren't really even tagging at the time. And he just came up with All Ego. And I was like, man, I need a moniker. I need to find something, if not something cool, I need something to put on a shirt or something. Because at the time, we were trying to sell merch and stuff. And he was like, dude, you're just a walking weapon. Like, and he said it like that in the car at like 3 a.m. on no sleep. And I was like, there it is right there. You know what I mean? Like you just said it. And like, it's kind of developed as a character over the years. In the beginning, it was just like, he was like, you're like the Jason Bourne of wrestling. You're good at this, 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 and this. You're an absolute animal. You never get tired, blah, blah, blah. You're highly trained, highly skilled. And I was like, yeah, I mean, it's perfect. And then I started using it and fans started chanting it. It's never gone away since. It's been like 12 years since. So.
Hey, all ego doesn't lie. It definitely fits. It definitely works. You said what, 12 years? I'd obviously from when you were on the Canadian Indies, it has been a long time. What are like some of the biggest lessons you've learned within wrestling from then till now?
There's a ton of them I could say, but like the very first and foremost is persistence is the best quality a wrestler can have. I have seen some of the greatest wrestlers come and go because they are not persistent, because they get let down time and time again and they can't take it anymore and they think their chance has passed them by. I didn't get signed for 14 years, and I was considered very good for probably half of that time. So 7 years I was getting offered contracts, having them fall through, having them pulled away, breaking my neck before I could sign one, stuff like that. All these opportunities at my doorstep, and then you know, because of circumstance, they are taken away. And if I did not persist, I would never be sitting here right now talking to you. So that's the advice I give to any wrestler out there, and pretty much anybody in real life, man. Like you're going to get let down, you're going to get your heart broken time and time again, chasing whatever dream you might have, and it's just about persisting and believing in yourself and knowing that you're ready and doing the work for it to capitalize when the chance does come.
100%, man. Hard work pays off, as they say. Stylistically, as you've kind of honed your craft, who were some of your go-to guys, your biggest inspirations when you decided to, step into this wacky world of pro wrestling?
It's evolved over time, but from the very get-go, when I first like broke into pro wrestling, like I say, I was inspired to even start wrestling because I saw the X Division in TNA and the same guys that were in Ring of Honor, like the AJ Styles, the Samoa Joes, the Low Keys. Like I saw this different style of pro wrestling than had ever been presented in front of me before from these guys, and they weren't of some massive stature like I was watching on WWE at the time. Like when I graduated high school, I saw the likes of Batista and Randy Orton. I was like, well, I'm not 6'5" and I'm not 270, completely shredded. Like, there's no way I'm going to do this. And then I tuned into TNA when I was like 15 years old, and I saw like a 170-pound Low Ki come out. And even though he's 5'8" or 5'9" and 170 pounds, he presented himself larger than life. And when he got in the ring, no matter who he was against, I don't care if he was 6'5", you wouldn't count Low Ki out from winning that fight. And that's something that just embedded in my mind. So when I started in pro wrestling, I'd always gravitated to the more technical style wrestling. That was just something I was a fan of. So I loved, Eddie Guerrero's my favorite, Kurt Angle's my favorite, the likes of those kind of names, and it's evolved over the years. And like when I was 5, 6 years into wrestling, I discovered Ishii and other people, and I started getting really into Bryan Danielson and Ring of Honor, and like, it just snowballs from there. But I have so many people I've looked up to over the years, and kind of I'm not going to say I've stolen from them, but I've certainly watched them and learned from them in tape study and stuff like that. So
Yeah, that is an elite list, and as you kind of were reeling them off, like I see it. I see it with everything you kind of do in the ring, as well as your own kind of individual style. So yeah, that's an amazing list to kind of learn from and take influence from. As of the top of this year, we've seen the TNA name return. Um, how do you think it's helped in any way, whether it be attracting talent or exposure of the company in general?
I think there's a certain amount of nostalgia factor involved, and it's not just nostalgia for the sake of something you might have loved, but nostalgia for the sake of brand recognition. Uh, like when I started Impact Wrestling, I have a visa. I have to cross the border. And when I cross the border, I say, yeah, I wrestle. And they go, for who? And I say, Impact. And they go, what? And I go, have you heard of TNA? And they go, yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? That's just general brand recognition throughout the real world, because you've heard of AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Kurt Angle, Sting, all these guys that competed under the TNA umbrella who didn't compete under Impact as much. You know what I mean? So I think there's just so much brand recognition from its run on Spike and all the success it had in like the late 2000s, early 2010s, and to bring it back now, especially for viewers in the UK who grew up watching mostly TNA because WWE was on a paid channel. Every time I've been to the UK, TNA is so popular because of that, and it was something I never knew until like a few years ago when I traveled there for the first time. And yeah, it's just those three letters. They hold a certain prestige and dominance throughout the pro wrestling world, and I think it's lent itself to the popularity and the rise of TNA over this 6, 7 months since the rebrand has happened. It just got everybody excited, including myself, who grew up a TNA fan.
And with that rebrand has come, flourishing partnership with WWE. And you've probably been asked this up and down, but the fans want to see it. Whether it's Josh Alexander coming over to WWE as part of the partnership, as Josh Alexander, whether it's to kind of reconnect with Ethan Page and do some of the North stuff over there. Like, is it going to happen? Are we going to see Josh Alexander on the NXT brand?
Well, in pro wrestling, you never say never. That's what they say, right? And I don't mean to give you a vague answer, but if I am to show up at NXT or WWE, I won't know until 24, 48 hours before. That they keep everything very close to the vest. I would certainly not turn down the opportunity. I would embrace it wholeheartedly. I know me and Ethan Page have a very similar foe right now that we do not like in Joe Hendry. But I don't think he needs any help from me beating Joe Hendry, because I think, Ethan Page and myself, we're in a league of our own. We're both championship caliber wrestlers. Obviously, he's the NXT champion right now. And I just don't think Joe is in that same, light as a competitor in the ring right now. So I don't think he needs my help. But if he ever does and he wants to make the call, I would love to see the North get back together for, under a special circumstance, even though I think that we're both very good singles competitors who have championship pedigree now as single stars. So I don't think it would be something that would happen in the long term. But if there's ever a special matchup out there, I don't think you would throw away that chemistry that we have as a tag team to not just go out there and embarrass somebody in a tag team match.
Hey, we would all love to see it, and this is some of the benefits of the partnerships, getting to see kind of these dream link ups and matches, and obviously TNA has a really kind of established at this point partnership with New Japan Pro Wrestling as well. I know that's somewhere that a lot of fans want to see you as well. Um, in regards to the AEW partnership of about 3, 4 years ago, is there any particular reason, in your opinion, why that came to an end, why it didn't work?
I have no idea. I know from the viewers of being like a fan watching from week to week, I think that they have a very strong partnership with New Japan Pro Wrestling as well as CMLL. And there's just so many people on that roster that, all the dream matches can't happen. But I mean, just from the outside looking in, I think Tony Khan is a wrestling fan just like the rest of us and wants to see these amazing matchups that are going to get, him and wrestling fans excited. So if there was ever something that would come out there that fans really clamored and wanted to see, such as myself versus Will Ospreay Part 3. I'm sure we would make it happen, but you would never. I don't think a wrestling fan would ever let business get in the way of something that fans wanted to see. I think this whole business is about giving the fans what they want to see in right time for the business. And if there was ever something that was like that out there, I think it would happen. But for now, we're enjoying this relationship with NXT and WWE. So
Does that relationship make things easier or harder for you when it comes to, maybe moving on from where you currently are? I think it's widely been reported that your contract is up sometime early next year. So it's like, with that partnership being there, does it maybe help if you want to go over there, or have you got your eyes set on elsewhere, or is it just staying in TNA? You want to kind of step out and kind of do what Ethan Page done, sort of thing?
no, like I can't say I want to leave TNA. You know what I mean? It's just I have never hit free agency. I've never been, the belle of the ball or whatever. I've never even seen what offers are out there from another company. I signed my first contract with Impact Wrestling nearly 6 years ago. I re-signed 3 years ago. Now that one's coming up, and I think I would doing myself and my family a disservice by not seeing what's out there. And if there's something out there that gets me really excited, it's all about what makes me happy at the end of the day. I've everything in my wrestling career for these 19 years has been just following my heart. There's many times that I was let down, or I broke my neck, or all this other stuff happened, that would deter somebody from keeping to follow their dream. But for me, it was just, this makes me happy. I want to do it. I get excited doing it still after 19 years and 1,500 plus matches or whatever it's been. So I'm just going to keep following my heart with it, and we're going to see where that leads.
Scott Demore, someone that's been pretty integral, I would say, to you. Even in fact, I think I've heard you credit before him getting you like into the country, so to speak, and onto the TNA or Impact at the time. Just how important, if you want to speak to how important Scott Demore has been for your career.
Well, Scott Demore was the one that signed me to my first contract in this business. He was the first person that paid me enough to support my family and do what I love, and to be able to concentrate on this full time. And it's something I'll never forget. I'm forever grateful for Scott Demore. I have a great relationship with him. I'm the head trainer at his wrestling school that he's owned for 30 years in Windsor, Canada, Can-Am Wrestling Dojo. And yeah, like I said, we've developed this relationship over 5 years together at Impact Wrestling. The man, like literally, he's coached more. He coached me and worked with me from being, a tag team wrestler that was very good in the ring, that otherwise never really spoke on the microphone, to somebody now who is wholeheartedly, I know who I am. I know how to speak on the microphone. I know how to convey a point and all this other stuff that makes me special. It makes me like a complete player as a pro wrestler. And that's, in no small part because of someone like Scott Demore.
Yeah, he was awesome. I remember the segment. I genuinely think the segment where you relinquished the title last year is one of the best bits of TV last year, in my opinion. Your son intercepting the title when you went to give it to him, I just thought it's just such, this is pro wrestling. It's heartfelt, it touches everybody. What does it generally feel like when you have to relinquish a title? You're doing such a good job, nearly a year run as the champion, and then you have to give it up because of injury.
Like heartbreaking is an understatement. I'd worked so hard for, like you said, nearly a year, defense after defense, you know what I mean, against some of the very best wrestlers in the world. I thought that, that run that I was on, and then I kind of include the X Division run because I gave that up in option C as well. Like when I have a championship, I'm there to represent that championship and this company and myself at the same time. And I take this incredibly seriously. And every time I step foot in the ring, I'm going to give everything I have, for better or for worse. And, that's why I sustained an injury at the same time. But, it's much of the same. I want to go out there and I want to make memories. I want to inspire people like me when I was inspired as a 15-year-old kid watching, AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, and Samoa Joe and Unbreakable. that's the only hope I can have by what I do. I get so much enjoyment out of this stuff that if I can do something that I enjoy and inspire somebody else, that's what makes everything mean more to me. So, when I had to give it up, it was just completely heartbreaking. It didn't, the finish the story thing in pro wrestling is, overused now because,
Mm.
Cody took it and ran with it. And thank God he finished the story. But I never got to finish that story with that championship, and it's unfinished business. And, that's why I want to get that TNA World Championship back as soon as possible.
Yeah, recently wrestled a fantastic match with Nic Nemeth for that. Time limit draw is very annoying, but I'm sure other chances will come round. As we just kind of come into close now, we're down to the last 4 or 5 months of the calendar year. What else, if we say put aside obviously the TNA World Championship, is there anything else by the end of 2024 you really want to achieve, and how are you going to go about achieving it?
I won a main event, Bound for Glory, for the fourth straight year, which has only been done by the icon Sting. So you talk about legacy and doing things in TNA. As I've said, I've done nearly everything there is to do. I think that's another thing on my bucket list that I need to achieve. That's what my goal's set on right now. And the thing I need to do that, I think, is to win that TNA World Championship back. So all eyes are on that belt. I'm going to take it back however I can. Main event, Bound for Glory, going to the history books alongside one of the greatest of all time.
That would be absolutely epic. And like you said, you put yourself in really good company if you manage to get that main event and walk out as the world champion. Walking weapon, Josh Alexander, it's been a pleasure speaking to you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All the best, man.